You know, when you really think about it, the story of humanity is a story of movement. It's a fundamental part of who we are. From our earliest ancestors to the headlines we see every day, it's all about searching for something more. In this explainer, we're going to unpack this huge, complex global issue by looking at it through the fascinating story of one country that's right at the heart of it all.
So here's what we're going to cover. First, we'll get on the same page with some key definitions. Then we'll zoom out to see the big global trends. After that, we'll zoom way in on Turkey, a country that's truly at a crossroads. And finally, we'll pull it all together and talk about what it all means. Sound good? Let's dive in.
All right, first things first. To really get into this topic, we need to make sure we're all speaking the same language. So let's quickly break down a few of the key terms that shape this whole conversation.
It really all boils down to this one simple question, right? At its very core, whether it's for a better job, for safety, or for social reasons, migration is this universal human drive to find better living conditions.
So what is migration exactly? Well, the big thing that separates it from just, traveling is the intent to settle. We're not talking about a vacation here. We're talking about moving to a new place to actually build a life.
And that movement, it basically breaks down into two main types. You've got internal migration, that's like moving from one city to another, all inside your own country. And then there's external migration, which is what most of us think of, crossing an international border to live or work somewhere else.
But, why someone moves is just as important as where they go. Voluntary migration is a choice, driven by the search for opportunity. But forced migration, that's a whole different story. That's about survival. It's when people are literally forced from their homes by war, disaster, or persecution, and they have no other option but to flee.
Okay, so now that we've got the basics down, let's zoom out. Let's take a look at how this all plays out on a global scale. Because in the super-connected world we live in today, the whole landscape of migration is changing, and it's changing fast.
Now, check out this number, 3.5%. At first glance, that might not sound like a huge chunk of the world's population. But we're talking about more than 270 million people living outside the country they were born in. And here's the real kicker. That number is growing faster than the world's population is. The world is absolutely on the move.
So what's behind all this? Well, it's a mix of a few major forces. Globalization means more countries are now part of the story, both as places people leave and places people go. We're seeing an acceleration in just the raw numbers of people moving. And it's also diversifying. It's not just one type of person, it's everyone from high-skilled tech workers to refugees. And critically, more women are migrating than ever before. And the whole topic has become, you guessed it, a massive political issue all around the globe.
But if you boil it down, a huge driver of all this movement is a powerful economic engine. The massive gap in wealth and opportunity between developed and developing nations, what's often called the south to north flow, creates this incredible pull as people search for a better future for themselves and their families.
So to really see how all these global forces play out in the real world, we're going to zoom in on one country, Turkey. It's really the perfect case study because its story captures so many different sides of modern migration.
I mean, this quote really nails it. You just can't understand Turkey's story without understanding its geography. For literally centuries, it's been the bridge between East and West. And because of that unique spot on the map, it's always been at the absolute center of human movement, a role it still plays today, big time.
For a long time, Turkey was a country people mostly left. Back in the 1960s, you had this whole guest worker era. Turkey signed deals with countries like Germany, Austria, and France to send Turkish workers to help rebuild after the war. The hope was that these workers would send money back home and eventually return with new skills.
But that's the old story. Today, the script has completely flipped. Turkey is now a major destination for people coming from other countries, and it's also a crucial transit point for people trying to get somewhere else, usually to Europe.
And this new reality really comes in two forms. You have regular migration, which is all done by the book, with the right visas, work permits, all the official paperwork. And then you have irregular migration, which happens outside of those official legal channels.
So how does that actually happen? Well, our source material breaks it down three main ways. Sometimes it's a direct, unauthorized entry, sneaking across a border. But it also happens when someone enters legally, maybe on a tourist visa, and then just doesn't leave when it expires. Or they might violate the rules of their visa, like working a job when they're only supposed to be a student.
All right, so we've looked at the concepts, the global picture, and this deep dive into Turkey.
What's the big takeaway here? What does this all tell us about where things are headed?
This is really the heart of it all. The old, simple idea of sending countries and receiving countries, it just doesn't work anymore. Turkey's story shows us this new, much more complex reality. It is, all at the same time, a country of origin for its own citizens, a major transit hub for people passing through, and a final destination for millions of others. It's all three at once, and that really changes how we have to think about migration in the 21st century.
This complexity isn't going away, and it leaves us with this huge, profound question. In a world that's only getting more connected, where these lines between origin, transit, and destination are getting blurrier by the day, what does the future of human movement even look like? What will the next chapter of this story be?